Probably I'm just waiting for Santa to bring me presents.
Oh, you're going to order it on your birthday, which is sooner.
Yeah, it is sooner.
I'm just this ideal guy, so I don't know what you want to ask me because I just own this stuff and I know this stuff, right?
I feel like in a modern world, we're kind of forgetting what it feels like to be bored for even 30 goddamn seconds.
Hello, I'm Michael.
I'm Radek.
And this is the podcast.
A sounding board for interesting ideas and insights. We discuss books we read and want to share with you,
as well as technology and productivity, which is what we do by day working on our app, Nosby.
Or whatever else comes to mind.
So today something came to your mind.
It did. So I've been wondering lately about the nature of distractions and addiction and how it relates to the devices and software we use and we make. Lately, I felt like I put myself in a Skinner box. I pull down on the glass to refresh a feed on Twitter, and my brain feeds me dopamine in return. And it can be vicious. You know, I have a difficult relationship with Twitter and social media in general. Reddit and Instagram and YouTube, and honestly, sometimes with kind of the hyperconnectivity of today's world in general. And there are times when I feel absolutely overwhelmed with all of this, when I'm bombarded with information and distractions and notifications buzzing constantly. Sometimes there's just too much and I can't handle it. I can't focus on what's important, on what I decide that matters. I find it difficult to focus on my essential thing, on doing something purposefully. I can't get a break I can't relax, because instead of me owning those devices and using those software to benefit me, it feels like they own me. And what makes it particularly vicious is the genuine utility. Like, if you get addicted to nicotine, you can decide to give up smoking, right? And it's not necessarily going to be easy, but there are a few downsides to that, right? And my addiction to Twitter is just as real as a smoker's addiction to nicotine. My impulse, my cravings to refresh the feed are real. The way it changes how my brain manages dopamine is real, right? But I'm not willing to give it up. Twitter is so good, it's so useful, right? I've gotten a tremendous amount of value in terms of knowledge and connections and help in my work because of Twitter, thanks to Twitter. I have many lasting friendships in my life that have been made possible by Twitter and by, all the meetups and conferences that then connect us in the real world, right? So I've just been finding it difficult. And last week, I've been on a vacation, and I really need it. I haven't had it for a while. I haven't had a real vacation in half a year. I took plenty of time off from work, but when I travel, like, most of my time off from work is just as intense as my work life, right? When I was in the US for 3 weeks, I had a blast. I done barely any work there, but it was very stressful. I didn't get a break. So it was kind of an opportunity to completely, or almost completely, kind of shut myself off from many of the everyday distractions and addictions. So one thing I did is I went into Twitter detox, and I said on Twitter that I'm taking a break for a week, and it's been 9 days since I last looked at Twitter, and it feels great, actually, to kind of get a rest from Twitter and Reddit. And I also made sure to completely kind of disable and all the notifications from Slack and Nozbe, so that I don't by accident, just by seeing a red badge or something, just start thinking about work during that week. And that was helpful. And I feel better now. But another thing that happened over the last few weeks is I got my new iPad. And that kind of came in a wrong time of my life where I was overwhelmed in general. And then here was this another source of frustration trying to learn this device I don't fully know how to use productively, and dealing with the beta and whatnot. And also, I haven't learned how to manage distractions and notifications on this device, right? Before, my iPad was a consumption device, and now I try to use it for some of my productive stuff, and here are all the notifications that just, again, take away my focus, right? So I just think it's a good point in my life, as I do from time to time, to rethink all of this, rethink my relationship with Twitter and with social media, and rethink how I manage notifications on my devices, how I handle distractions, how I isolate myself completely from all of this stuff when I need it, but still allow myself to be available to people, right? How to simplify this system so I can continue to reap benefits from it, to use what those devices, what the constant connectivity, what the notifications, what the social media have to offer me to make my life better, but minimize the negative impact of them on my sense of well-being, as I felt recently, just being too overwhelmed with all of the information and losing the ability to focus because of it. So, all right, with that monologue out of the way, I wanted to discuss this topic with you of devices and distractions and addiction. I wanted to ask you how you deal with it, how you manage kind of your system and all of this stuff to get that balance, and maybe try to hash out together some ideas for both of us to improve.
Yeah, so I'm still here. Of course, I am a perfect productivity guy, and I always follow my routines, and I never get distracted. I'm just this ideal guy. So I don't know what you want to ask me, because I just own this stuff and I know this stuff, right? No, I don't. I'm a human being. So spoiler alert, it's not that easy. And what I did, so there is a thing. We talked about monkey brain optimizations and tricks, and this episode will be kind of similar in this way, because we really like the dopamine rush. It's hard to get out of the way, and then again, we don't want to be like 100% pure stoics without any feelings or anything affecting us. So we want to be emotionally engaged. So it is okay to be emotionally engaged and to be passionate about topics, passionate about things, passionate about people, passionate about ideas. And Twitter, as you mentioned, is one of the sources for us of all these things, of some connections, of some ideas, and of some things. And as you said, some meaningful connections and meaningful ideas. Yeah. So it's really hard to just do cold turkey on this. I would start with this idea of compartmentalizing, right? So just putting things in their compartments. For example, I don't watch news on the television. I do have a cable TV subscription, but we use it mainly for my kids to watch some cartoons, for us to record some movies, and actually to have the HBO Go bundled with it, so we can watch HBO whenever we want to. And we have Netflix, and we use that to, if we want to watch something, we choose something to watch. This way, I don't get news from television. So I get news from people, and I get news from Twitter. So that's one thing. to know where I get news from, like from the people and not from the television, but for example, from Twitter. There are also other social media networks, like you have Facebook, you have other things. And for me, the idea is to really design where you get this information from, how you get it, and when you get it, and also the notifications. So when you get notified about things. And I was really impressed when you wrote that you're, doing a break from Twitter for a week. I was like, yeah, how can he live without knowing all this stuff that's happening around the world?
Yeah.
And before we dive into this, I'm going to tell you a short story because it's really related to this. Recently, I got involved in a thing in my children's school. There was a problem at school, and I got involved as a parent because I cared for the issue and I wanted to help it solve it. And I was really passionate about it. I was with other parents together, mixing this and really passionate about it and working together on this. And we were trying to, get other parents to care about it and to let them know what's happening, what happened, and it's very important. They should participate. And some did, and some didn't. And then I realized that while this issue is very important to me and for my kids, some people really don't care, and they're fine. And they're just fine. And their kids will be fine. They won't be as well off as we would be if we won the case or if we solved the issue. But they'll be fine, and they don't care about it, and they don't know about it. So whenever we talked about it, they just, whatever, it's going to happen, what's going to happen. And then I realized that the danger with news is the fact that we think we should care about all of this that's happening in the world. And really just a few things matter. And if we, as you said, if we just, forget about something for a week, no pasa nada. It's going to be fine. Like, it's not like the whole world would break down. And if you take a longer break, very often somebody just gives you a short, distilled version of what just happened. You catch up quickly, and that's fine. So what I'm saying is that with this situation at school, I realized that you can not care about many things and still be fine. And that our perception that we have to care about this and this and this is just our personal perception. And I think the key to getting rid of these, to managing our addictions or our perception is by limiting our perception, and by limiting, not by not caring, but by trying to limit our perception of what's really important and designing our life around this.
So speaking of compartmentalizing, that's actually part of the problem with this new iPad I got, because before I had a system, right? I had my Mac, I had my iPhone, I had my iPad, and my iPad was a consumption device. That's what it was. I would occasionally do something else on it. I would occasionally look at Nozbe there, or in the past, I would a few times bring my Bluetooth keyboard and just type on it, whatever, right? But it was a consumption device. So what I would do is I would block off Twitter completely from my phone, and I have a one blocker, which is content blocker for Safari, set up such that it's a lot of effort to go on Twitter on my iPhone. And I did it on purpose to minimize this impulse to go on Twitter, because I just noticed hey, that's not very useful to fill in every 20 seconds of empty space in my life with Twitter, right? So I did that, and on my Mac, I would try to do the same thing as well. Now, I would be far from perfect on it, but again, I would not have an app, and I would make it more purposefully difficult for me to visit Twitter through the website. And then Twitter would be on my iPad. And if I would be doing Twitter or wanted to check on Reddit or whatever, even though I still had this unhealthy relationship with the social media, all of those kind of bad habits, this was my device for bad habits. But now I decided to make this grand experiment, as we talked about a few episodes ago, to learn iPad in a new way, try to do more things on it. But still, it's the best device I have for media consumption. It's just the perfect form factor, the perfect way of interacting to just casually sit on the couch and browse Twitter, right? And again, I don't want to give them up completely. But now I have this problem that I don't have this this compartmentalization in my head, right? It's really useful to have this anchor in my mind that when I'm sitting in front of my big screen on my Mac, on my desk, I'm making code, I'm writing code, I'm doing my work, right? If I'm on my iPhone, it's just to like quickly communicate with something or like do simple everyday tasks, right? And then the leisure stuff would be mostly on my iPad. And now I don't have that. And that makes it more difficult because it's just too easy to follow the impulse and, you know, switch from one app on my iPad to Twitter. And that's a problem. And also on Twitter, similar problem exists that Twitter is a source of many things for me. And it's like there's a lot of things on Twitter that don't bring me much value, only distraction and anxiety and just, you know, I unnecessarily get emotionally involved with matters that just happen and pass in the world that annoy me, but I can't directly influence, and they just take up too much mental space in my life. But you know, it's kind of, I haven't figured out yet how to solve that, how to restore this balance that I know, like when and where I allow myself to browse on you know, Twitter and Reddit and whatnot in such a way that it doesn't affect me in negative ways. And I think one thing I am for sure going to do on Twitter is I have to seriously prune my following list, and I'm going to maybe have to switch to a different client than the official one, because I don't think the official one has good support for muting, because you know, in Tweetbot for sure you can write regular expressions to just filter out anything that has some phrase or some pattern, so that you don't see anything that mentions, I don't know, Trump, right? Because I feel like I need that. There's just I would in the past try to prune my following list, and I have only 400, and I had more, but it's still way too much. And there's a lot of it which I found difficult to give up because it's interesting, right? But it's still, we get back to this problem that you kind of collect and hoard those nice things, those things that seem that might be useful, but in the end they make your life worse, not better, right? So I think I have to manage Twitter in a smarter way so that I see the stuff that's useful from people who are, you know, really worth following. Now, you know, I follow 400 people or 400 accounts because all of them felt worth following. But if I see that it's a problem for me, that it's too distracting, that I can't focus because of it, because of this impulse, then maybe not. Maybe I have to be more brutal about it.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, this is one of the solutions to prune this. So let's get practical about how to deal with that. So in my case, as you know, I also have 3 devices that I use. The iPhone, iMac, and the iPad, which is my main working device. And 4 devices, Apple Watch. And why Apple Watch is important in a second. So first of all, my main communications device is the iPhone, and I have like all the communications things there. And here WhatsApp also is very popular, and there's no iPad client for it, so it's also here on my iPhone. And the Facebook Messenger, I don't use it so much, but it's here. I have to so So I have the messenger things on the iPhone, and the only thing that I want to remove from the iPhone, and I'm going to, I think, do it also live today on the podcast, is to delete Tweetbot, so the Twitter client. I stopped using the official client when it got so bloated that I just didn't want to download the update on the 4G, so I just got Tweetbot when I was traveling, and I got used to it, and it's fine. So I'm going to remove the Tweetbot because whenever I pull out the iPhone, my first instinct is to go to Tweetbot, to Twitter, and it's bad. So and it's really a kind of compulsive behavior, and I don't want that anymore. My second compulsive behavior is Instagram.
Yes.
But Instagram recently, I managed to not to get too quickly there. So hopefully, so my idea is that also I want to just filter out right now my apps and check out my apps on the iPhone and add some more creative apps on the iPhone, and just make sure that I put them in front so that I can actually do something productive with my time. So that's one of the tricks. On the iPad, I have Tweetbot as well, but on the iPad, because I'm used to having my iPad as my work device, I don't get distracted with Tweetbot. I don't put it, as a split view or whatever thing. I have of course I have all the notifications off. So on the iPad I have only, I think, iMessage notifications on. So and Nozbe, and I just removed the Slack notifications. So I have only the most important notifications on iPad. The rest of the notifications are off, and because when I work on the iPad, I don't get tempted to go to Tweetbot because I'm here to work, and I don't know, my brain works like that. I just, on the iPad, I don't tend to go to Twitter, while on the iPhone, I do tend to go to Twitter for some reason. So far so good. And one thing I do also in the afternoons, and especially after I read the book, The Stoics, the Guide to Good Life that we discussed in past 2 episodes, in the afternoons, I leave my iPhone charged in my bedroom, and I walk around my house and play with my girls, do something, talk to my wife, whatever, do things with my family. And because I have my Apple Watch on me, I know that no notification, if it's important, like a message or some important notification, will get unseen, because I get it on the pushed to the watch. So I don't have to carry my iPhone with me, because very often what I found out is that I would be with my family, but in an idle time, everybody would be doing something, and me, instead of joining them, doing something with them, I would pull out the phone and go to Twitter.
Yeah.
So I would be physically with my family, but in my mind, I would be somewhere, browsing Twitter, tweets about Trump or I don't know, some other things. So this way, I remove this temptation, because my phone is somewhere else, charging, in my bedroom, and I don't go to my bedroom during the day. I go only there to go to sleep. So I really spend my time with my family, and for that, really, the Apple Watch is a godsend, because it I know that if something, should something important, some message important message can come to me, I'm going to have it on my wrist, so it's going to be fine. And we know very well, Apple Watch is really crap for browsing any kind of content. So there's no way for me to open, I don't know, any kind of Twitter browsing app or even Instagram app on the watch, because it's just ridiculous. So this is these are some of the tricks that I use.
So what you're saying about filling your idle time is a large portion of the problem here, that because all of this friction is getting more and more removed with each passing year, as those devices get smaller and we carry them around all the time, and they're hyper connected and they're so fast. It's just, whenever I feel like in a modern world, we're kind of forgetting what it feels like to be bored for even 30 goddamn seconds, right? You have literally 20 seconds as you're ascending in in an elevator. And what do? You browse Twitter or you go to Instagram, and it's just it's stupid, right? Like it's not healthy at all. But it's very difficult to manage it in such a way that you have it and you have it when it's available, and you have it notified when something that's important to you, that you see it, but actually avoid this temptation, right? So I think purposefully kind of disconnecting yourself from it, but in such a way that you still know when something important happens, is a really good idea. And one thing I mentioned to you previously, but haven't mentioned it on the show, is for the last 2 weeks or so, I have stopped wearing my Apple Watch, which is, I guess, another technology experiment, because I started doubting its utility. And you know, when I was feeling overwhelmed with all of this stuff, I felt like it's making things worse, not better. The idea was for it to surface things, notifications that matter, so that I see them when it matters, but never else. But perhaps it's just my fault that I mismanaged which notifications I allow. But I just found it that instead of it freeing me to focus on anything and be on do not disturb and just see when something important happens, it just showers me with more distractions. So one thing I'm going to do is I will continue for a while more to go on without my Apple Watch, and then I'll try to get back to it and manage it differently, like really, really, very brutally prune which notifications I allow, and see what difference it makes.
Yeah, I mean, for example, in my case, on the Apple Watch, I really try to, just because you can do that, you can separately set notifications for the iPhone and separately for the Apple Watch. It's a bit more work, but I try to do that. And recently I just discovered that Overcast is pushing me notifications, with new episodes to my watch. And I don't like that because I don't need that. I go to Overcast to listen to podcasts, so then I can choose something. I don't need to be notified about new podcasts. So whenever I see that, I actually take the time to go and remove this notification if I don't like it. And that's why I'm saying that in the afternoons, I know that on my Apple Watch, I'm going to only get the notifications of the messaging apps. So like really important messages that will come to me. I mean, not really important. Sometimes they're just, messages from people on WhatsApp or something like that. But for example, a Facebook Messenger, I don't get messages from Facebook Messenger. I don't get messages from Instagram. And this is annoying because whenever I go to Instagram, they show me the banner, you should enable your notifications. I'm like, hell no. So yes, it requires tweaking. It does. But also, speaking of you, refining your Twitter following, I realized the same, it is kind of biased, but I don't care about it. Like, for example, I have just one person, one journalist from Poland that basically retweets or tweets the news from Poland, like for me, right? I just follow this individual, and I know that, just following this guy, I will get everything that's happening right now in Poland, and that's it. So I don't need to follow like several other politicians or other journalists or whoever. I just follow this guy. I trust him in his judgment because, he's been good to me in the past. I mean, it's proven track record. But, and then I realized, for example, that I have a few other politicians from journalists from the States, giving me news. And I realized I have too many redundant, journalists. So I think sending me the same, message. So I'm going to prune that too, and just also focus on one individual. It is a little bit biased because I get, one individual's point of view. But then again, some important news will spread through my even, tech guys or other people.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm going to get something. So I think it's fine. I mean, really, this way I don't have to relive like the same thing over and over again. I get it. There's this news, okay, and it's fine. So I don't mind having this biased kind of news, because the alternative is just to get rid of the news at all. So at least I have something.
Yeah, I will see, but I might get even more brutal about pruning news from Twitter, like political news especially, because it is something that's important, that's relevant, but it's just I don't see it being worth it because it just makes me too frustrated without me having much ability to do with it. And the important things, I find that they spread to me anyway.
I think you're right.
Like here's the thing. Over the last week, again, I have been off Twitter, but one of my friends who was traveling with me, he was still on Twitter, and he was my Twitter filter. And there were exactly 2 pieces of news that I found interesting, and I got them from him, right? and like here's the thing. Like I'm not going to give up Twitter permanently, but like the thing is, important things will spread to you, will filter out through all of those barriers to you anyway, right? And it's just we have to. I feel like we have to get back to this this notion of a zero sum game. Like we have our ability to focus on anything and care about things is so limited, and it's just I feel like in this digital world, I've hoarded too many things, too many Twitter accounts to follow and whatnot, because all of them were good. They were not bad, but they're not good enough. They're not good enough to justify how the collective of them, like how much space it covers. So I think like with news in particular, I'm just going to prune it very brutally. And again, like we got so used to it that we forgot that it's not necessary. The most important things will travel to you anyway. And speaking of notifications that you mentioned, I've made some changes already on my iPad after we discussed it privately yesterday. I've disabled Slack notifications on my iPad completely, but I left the badge on. So if someone direct messages me or mentions me after probably not more than 10 or 15 minutes, at some point, I will look at home screen and notice it anyway. And depending on how I feel, like how focused I want to be right now, I might choose to look at it now or maybe in, half an hour later. But it's just, we got so used to everything being so instantaneous, we figured that it doesn't really matter. Like nothing is going to burn in the next 10 minutes, right? Like there are ways for people to reach you if things are urgent. So what you said about iMessage is really interesting, because most of the people that would write me like important, urgent things would do it through iMessage. So if there's something important, again, it's going to filter out to me. And if something is super urgent, they're going to call me, which never happens, right? But the thing is, like, people still have channels for you to reach you when it really matters, and most of the time it doesn't. And we just we see the utility of notifications popping up, and not even from Twitter, which we both disabled a long time ago, but even from Slack, and it just doesn't matter. Like, people can wait 10 minutes or half an hour, and if they can't, they're going to reach you anyway. So I did that, but I left, at least for now, I left them on my iPhone. But when I get back to my Apple Watch, I would disable on my Apple Watch, because like sooner or later, again, in not a long time, I will pick up my iPhone and see it anyway. And it's going to be easier to decide if I want to ignore it for now or not. But it doesn't need to be right now. I did the same thing with Facebook Messenger, which unlike you, I do use with many people. It will, the notifications appear on my phone, but not on my iPad. But I left the badge on. So again, I will see if something appeared. I also think I'm going to disable some of the notifications from Nozbe, because when someone delegates a task to me, it's almost never urgent. I feel like the only thing that really matters to me is reminders for tasks that are due soon. and maybe people mentioning at mentioning me, because if they do that, they do that for a reason, right? Because they want to get my attention. But I don't need to see that all the time.
Yeah, you're probably right. So about just I'm going to finish up with the politics thing, for example. I think you're right. I'm going to remove the politics, almost entirely from my Twitter, or just try to remove it almost entirely from Twitter, because anyway, at the end of the week, I'm on HBO Go. I'm watching Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. So I'm going to have in 30 minutes, I'm going to have the condensed version of what just happened. If I missed something, I'm going to get it. So it's going to be fine and it's going to be funny. So, and I watch this show anyway. So again, it's the question of where do I get my information from, or where do I get my news from? So that would be a useful thing. With my iPhone, I need to rethink again all the iPhone setup, because some of the apps that I have on my iPhone just too many apps, and the badges are just like, I have on Skype I have a badge and 5. I really don't know what it means.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna just remove the badge anyway, and I never got to it. So that's important. But yeah, so for me, like this thing with managing notifications, it takes time, but it's really important. It really makes the difference. It helps me stay out. And the Tweetbot, I'm really sorry, but Tweetbot, I love you, but you're leaving my iPhone right now.
Just very quickly before we wrap up, let's continue this new pattern we started last week, and let's recommend 2 books that we've read or are reading right now.
Okay, so I'm going to start with a book about selling. And it's useful to me because we are right now trying to sell and selling Nozbe for Business, and I want us to be a better selling company and to sell not only Nozbe but also the concept of productivity. But I think every one of us is selling all the time. We're selling ideas. We're selling ideas to people. We're selling concepts to people. We're selling ourselves. Like whenever we want to just convince somebody of something, and we should be better salespeople. And this book, The Challenger Sale, is very interesting, by Matthew Dixon and Brent Adamson. It's about challenging the customer, not just selling them whatever they want. So it's also about challenging ourselves and challenging the industry. So I like this approach, and I think it's useful just beyond selling. Just it's useful in general for people. So I like it.
All right, and my pick for this week will be the book Bad Science by Ben Goldacre, which is about how science is misused by media in particular for kind of their advantage, to spread information, to make a headline, but actually in a way that's not scientific at all. Science is something that's important to understand, like how the process works, because that's the best tool we have for finding out truth about the universe, about how things work, and it brought us the world that we have today. But if you don't understand how the process works, how scientific journals work, if you don't understand statistical significance, if you don't understand different biases, then you might be very easily misled by hearing all of the news in the media that start with scientists said or whatever. And instead of it making you smarter, it just makes you dumber. And I think it's very useful to understand all of this and how to separate the good stuff from the bad. And I think the book is a pretty good summary, or maybe not a summary, but a good explanation for all of that.